Hey friends, in this video we're going to build a SaaS application that uses generative AI to transform images. Let me show you the finished product here. As you can see, I have an image with this slider. I have removed the background and actually gave a fill color for the background. And with this slider you can see the before and after of our image here. If I go ahead and select a different image, if you're using Cloudinary to host our images, and actually if you're using Cloudinary AI to do the transformation, we're going to jump into the code later on. And I'm going to walk you through implementation of this widgets to upload and actually transform. But for now, I'm just going to select a different image from my computer. Once this is loaded here, you can see the image. It's a low quality image. If I make it bigger, I have three options for transformation here. There's more you can do. Again, I'm going to walk through different options that you have in Cloudinary, but for now, we have the restore functionality, which is for restoring an image with a lower quality to a better quality. It uses AI to actually expand the image to a higher scale and a better quality. The other transformation we have here is to remove the background or change the background color. So let's hit the restore. This is going to send our data to Cloudinary, get the response back. And as you can see on the right hand side, we have a better quality image. If I go to slider, you can see the before and after for this image, which is pretty awesome. And it's pretty actually easy to implement this using the next-cloudinary package that allows you to work with Cloudinary assets right inside of your NextJs application. So bear with me until I show you this, and then we're going to jump into the code and Cloudinary documentation in a second. Now here, if I hit remove background, it is going to remove the background. I also have the option, as you saw in the beginning, to also change the background fill. So I can change the background to this violet color, and you get the idea. So as I mentioned, we're using Cloudinary for this. I'm going to include a link to this Cloudinary AI, or the piece of the documentation that talks about the AI features that Cloudinary now supports, specifically for images and also videos. Some of the features are in beta, so when you're reading through the docs, just be aware that some of them, like the restore API that we're using, is in beta. It's pretty good with the images that I tested and tried, but just be aware that some of the features are in beta, some of the features are now stable. Now, you have the generative fill. This is going to expand the image based on AI to fill the background. You can remove objects or the background in our case, or specify an object to be removed. You can replace, as you can see, the shirt here is replaced. We're not going to obviously implement all of this, but it will be the same idea. Once we learn how to do this using the next-cloudinary package, you can go ahead and extend our SaaS application by these features. We have the recolor feature, where you can recolor a specific object in the image or restore it when you have a lower quality image. Use AI to actually restore it to a better quality image. So let's jump right into the code and see how we would go about implementing this. Now, first things first, you need a Cloudinary account. If you don't have any, you can go ahead and sign up for a free account. A free account also comes with some credits that you can use against the AI features. And once you tested it and tried it and you liked it, you can maybe upgrade to a paid version. Now, to work with our assets and images inside Cloudinary, we're going to use a package called next-cloudinary. Now, the next-cloudinary package exposes a couple of components, as you can see here on the left-hand side. The CLD image, or the Cloudinary image component, which is a wrapper around the next image. So you get the built-in features from next image, but this also extends the next image component and enables you to use your Cloudinary assets easier. We have the OG image, the upload button, and upload widget. This is going to allow you to render an upload dialog or a modal for users to drag and drop files to upload images to your Cloudinary account. There's some helper functions here. We're going to use this get cloud image URL later on when we want to add a download functionality to our SaaS application, or once the transformation is done on the images. So let's start from this cloud image. The basic usage, I'm going to make this a bit bigger. As you can see, this component, you can pass into it the width, size, and height. Basically, it supports all the props that you would pass into your next image component. But on top of it, we have this source, which is now set to the public ID of your Cloudinary asset. Now, let me quickly go to my Cloudinary account. If I click on one of these images here, you can see every image has a public ID. As you can see here, this is the public ID of my image. And all you need to do to render an image inside your Next.js application is to have that public ID and pass it to the source property of your CLD image component. Now, one thing to note is that if you're using this component inside of your app router in Next.js, you actually need to add the use client directive up top because this is not yet supporting the app router. Now, the way that you would do it is, let me quickly show you here. I have created this components, this custom components, that what they're doing is that it's getting this CLD image component from next-cloudinary, and I'm passing it or wrapping this inside of a use client directive component. So this is a client component. And all I'm doing here is that I'm returning this default component I'm getting from next-cloudinary, passing in any props to it. And then now this CLD image component that I have, because it's using this use client directive, it now supports this component from next-cloudinary and I can use it anywhere inside of my application. So let me also show you this other component that I created for the upload button. In a similar fashion, I'm getting the upload button from next-cloudinary and I'm exporting it from a client component so that I can use it. Now, this would be a pattern that you can use not only here, but with any library that you want to use it inside the app router. If they do not support this use client directive yet, meaning that they do not include this use client themselves, you can just import them inside of your own component, mark them as client components by using the use client directive, and then export that component so that you can use it inside the app router. So just a quick note, if you're using Next.js app router just as I'm doing here, that you need to actually add that. Now, the good thing about this Cloudinary image component is that not only you can render images that you're hosting inside your Cloudinary account, you can actually pass in props to do the transformations right here inside of this component. So for example, here we are passing in the remove background and a tint property to remove the background, tint the image, and actually also passing in an underlay. So this is going to change the background of the image to another image, which you can specify with another public ID of another image hosted inside your Cloudinary account. Now, we can also use Cloudinary URL. So instead of just passing in the public ID, you can pass in the whole URL. This is the URL that you would have passed into your next image component if you were not using this CLD image component. And with Cloudinary, you can use the SDK to do these transformations, but you can also use your URL and pass in parameters inside the URL to apply these transformations on the go. Now here, we're using an absolute URL to a specific image on our account. And down here, as you can see, we are changing the width and the height and a crop of field to our image, and we're passing in this prop that says preserve transformations. So therefore, this component is going to preserve the transformations that's applied inside of this URL. So a little side note, but good to know that you can either pass in an absolute URL or just the public ID and then use these props to actually perform more transformations. Now you can go to the config to have a list of everything that you can do inside of this component, all the transformations that are supported. The examples are the remove background that we're going to use, the restore that we're going to use, the background that's going to allow us to pass in a color to change the background color. And there are some nice examples here too for removing the background, changing the colors and whatnot that you can actually go through the documentation and learn for yourself. Now let's jump into the code and see how we would go about implementing this, and we're going to reference the documentation as needed. So let me go back to my application and actually close this off. Now to start off, this is a Next.js application that's using TypeScript and the app router, also Tailwind CSS. Inside of the app router, we have this page.tsx, which is our homepage. Our layout, this is just what comes out of the box when you're running the script. All I had changed is the homepage and also this transform page, which we're going to see in a second. I've added the components. The components are specifically the Cloudinary image and upload button components, as I just showed a few minutes ago. In the library, we have this cn function that allows us to merge CSS or Tailwind utility classes together. if we're conditionally adding or applying different classes. And that's pretty much it. I haven't changed anything else. So let's start by our home page, and then we're going to jump into the transform page, which is basically where we are rendering our transformation. So quickly going back to the home page, this is just to make our SaaS application a little nicer. We have the home page and the transform page. In future videos, we can add authentication to our application and also Stripe and a proper subscription for users to have free accounts or paid accounts for different amount of credits that they get to actually use to transform their images. But for now, it's just the bare bone of this functionality. Maybe you can extend it yourself, or I will extend it in future videos. Now, besides this hero section, there isn't really much happening on the homepage. So let me just go back to our transform page. This is where the actual transformation is happening. Let's also navigate to the transform page. So from a high level, we are rendering this left-hand side bar for users to be able to upload an image. Once we do have an image, they can go ahead and apply some transformation, and they can eventually download the transformed version of their image to their local machine. Now on the left-hand side, you can see these different components or containers here for rendering the mobile menu slider. This is responsive. So if I open up my DevTools here and make this a bit smaller, you'll be able to see that this sidebar actually is responsive. Nothing really important to the functionality of our page, but just so you know. Now the main things we're going to be working with is this menu here. So inside of our desktop container, we have this different actual list elements or buttons that allows us to upload an image or apply different transformations. So that's one area that we want to work in. And the main content area is where we're going to actually render our images using this CLD image component. And if we have any transformed images, we're going to use this React compare slider to show them side by side or show them using this slider. But before we get here, let's actually start by allowing the users to select or upload an image first. Now for this, let's come to this desktop section where we are rendering this different list element. And the first list element that we have over here is using this cloud upload button. Now this is the component that we looked at together in the beginning. It's using the cloud upload button from next-cloudinary. This is a button that you can render anywhere in your application. And once you click on it, it's going to open this upload widget that the users can actually use to select images from their local computer or really anywhere. So if you can see here on the right hand side, you can select local files, you can select or pass in a web address, use a camera, Dropbox, or even use Unsplash if you wanted to use it. So you can connect to Unsplash and use it directly here if you wanted to upload images. So that's the button. The button is responsible to opening this up. So going back, now on click, we are resetting some states here. We're going to come back to this states in a second, but the more important one is this onSuccess event handler. If we go to the next-cloudinary package, we're actually using this cloud upload button. Inside the basic usage, you can see that this allows you to render a button anywhere in your application that once clicked is going to open the upload widget. And the only thing really you need to pass to it is this upload preset prop. Now, presets are something you can set inside your Cloudinary account. If you come down to this cog icon for settings, you can see this upload section where you can see these upload presets. You can define new presets. These are going to be like folders inside your account, but you can also set some settings on each of these presets. You can apply different transformations when images are uploaded in these specific folders. You can require them to be signed. We actually had a video on the channel where we used several actions to upload files in a signed manner or authenticated manner to our Cloudinary account. Or you can leave them unsigned, which means anybody from any application can actually really upload to this presets or folders. So what you need to pass into this button is really this upload preset. But one thing about the config on this button is that it inherits all the props from Cloud Upload widget. So if you go to the Cloud Upload widget, you can see there are different event listeners or options that this specific component actually accepts. Down here, you can see the events. I'm using this onSuccess event, which is a function that's executed once the upload is successful. Now let's see what we're doing here. We're getting the results back and this widget. Widget is a reference to this dialog that was open. So we're going to set a resource state. This is our local state that we are defining up here. So this is our image here. So we're setting this resource down here. So this result object has an info property on it, and the info property includes all the information that comes back from Cloudinary, including our public ID, the URL or a secure URL, the width and height of the image, and much more information that we can then use to render this image. And once this is successful, I'm also calling the close method on the widget to close the widget that was open for the user to select an image. So this is the first thing we're doing to actually allow the users to select and upload an image to our Cloudinary account. Now, once we have this resource set up here, let's actually go down and see how we are rendering this. So down here inside of our main content, this is where we're using these two conditionals to render a cloud image component with that specific resource and the public ID. If you remember, inside of this cloud image component, the basic usage for the resource or for the source prop of your cloud image, you just need to pass in the public ID. So I'm getting the public ID, and then I'm just rendering this cloud image component. You can get the width and the height from the resources. This actually has the width and the height. These are the actual width and the height of the image that was selected. Whereas the width and the height here you pass in is the rendered width and height. And in our application, once we select, if we wanted to see this in action, let me just go back to selecting files from my computer. So if I just go ahead and select an image here, this is going to close off and then show the image here. Now, up until this point, we only have one image because we haven't selected or applied any transformation. So this is the Boolean that I'm reading here to see, is there any active transformation happening? Now, to see what this is, let's go up and see other piece of state that we are holding that is for our transformations. Now, I'm going to initialize these transformations to this object that I have here for the initial state that has the restore property. So you can restore your image. You can select to remove the background or pass in a background color, which is going to be a hex color in this case. Now, to start with, we don't have any transformations. So down here, I have this transformations active, which is going to map over the values inside of our state and pass them through this Boolean function to see if we have anything active, anything truthy. And if we do, we're going to actually send those transformations to Cloudinary to get the new transformed image. So let's actually go down on the page and see how we can apply these different transformations here. So the first item inside of our list was this upload widget. Now the second item under this transform is actually this button that allows the user to select a restore transformation. Now all we're doing here is calling this set transformation state and rewriting the restore to true and then passing everything else to also be, or resetting everything to the initial transformation or to the initial state. I'm also holding another piece of state here, which is tracking to see if this transformed image has finished loading. Now to see this in action, if I click on this restore button, that loading UI starts showing and we replace it once we have the transformed image. So let's actually go down in the main content area where we are rendering this image now here. So the first section was when we did not have any active transformation, but once we do have an active transformation, we're actually rendering two different components. This compare is just looking to see if the user wants to compare them with this slider. So if it is, we're using the React compare slider component from the React slider or compare slider package up here. This is a package you can download. You can pass to it two different images or two different items, and it just renders them side by side. So if the user wants to see these images side by side, this is what we're doing here inside this React compare slider. And if they want to see them side by side instead of this slider, just controlling it by here. Now let's see how we're doing here. So the first image we're showing is just this resource that we had, or the resource that the user actually uploaded. And the second transformed image is what we are showing down here using another CLD image component, which is using the same public ID or the same resource inside of our Cloudinary, but this time Depending on what transformation the user actually selected, we are passing in some extra props. For example, if they have selected to restore the image, I'm passing in restore true and also improve to indoor 50. This is another prop you can pass into your cloud image component. This is another AI transformation which is going to improve the quality of your images. It is recommended to use it alongside this restore. It just makes the finished quality better. You can again reference the documentation as for the props that you can pass in here. And if, for example, I have the remove background transformation selected from the user, I'm going to just pass in remove background. This is again another prop you can pass into your next-cloudinary image component. So if you go to the config here, you can see different transformations you can pass in here. Remove background is the other one we're passing. And if I do have a background set, this is the background color. All I'm doing is to pass in remove background true. So we remove the background first and then pass in this RGB and a hex information or a color to set the background to. So all we're doing here really is that we are using two different cloud image components. This is the Cloudinary image component. And we are just passing these extra props depending on the type of transformation that the user actually selected. Now for the loading UI, if you're curious here, I'm just reading to see if this loading state is here. I'm rendering this SVG component, which is that spinner that you saw before this image was loaded. Now to see this in action again, if I click on remove background here, you can see this component rendering that spinner. Once this component finishes loading, by the way, this is where we are actually setting that on load or setting that piece of state. Again, the cloud image component is a wrapper around the next image component. On your next image components, this is native to Next.js apps, you have this onload event handler when you can pass in a function which will be executed once this image finishes loading. So here I'm passing or I'm setting this state to say, hey, this image actually finished loading. So these transformations have been applied on the fly in Cloudinary, and now we have the image. And once we have the image, we show it here, and then we remove this loading state over here. Now that I have removed the background color, let's actually go ahead and apply a different background color here and see that in action. Now, the last functionality that I want to talk about is enabling the user to actually download this transformed version of their image. So let's go up again to where we were rendering these different list elements. And by the way, the rest of these buttons, just similar to this first button where we were restoring or selecting this restoration as our transformation, the next button is just passing in this state and setting the remove background. And the last button that we have here is actually an input of type color. This is going to open up that color selector input for you to select. And on change, we are this time setting different states. And the way that I'm rendering this so you don't see it is I have set the opacity to 0. I'm passing in a reference. And once you click on this button, I'm just clicking, getting the reference to this input and then calling the click function on it. So it opens up that color selector. Again, just a little implementation detail here. Now down inside of this list, we have this download image button where we're calling this handle download. So let's go up and see what we're doing inside of this handle download. This is the last piece of our app. So inside of here, we're calling another function from our Cloudinary package. So here inside the next Cloudinary, you can see we have a different set of functions: the get cloud image URL, the OG image, and the cloud video URL. So this image URL or this function, you can pass in the same props to it, and it is going to give you the URL that you can just pass into any component, any next image component, for example, and it's going to do these transformations on the fly. Again, this is how Cloudinary works. You can use the SDK to apply these transformations. You can use the cloud image component to apply these transformations, or you can just pass all of these transformations inside of the URL. Now, the idea for me here is that I want to apply the same transformations that the user has selected to get the URL back. And then I'm going to fetch that URL to actually get the actual image back from Cloudinary. Once I got that back, I'm going to turn that into a blob. It's an image. Then I'm going to create an object URL using this URL interface from the browser. And once I have that, I'm going to create an A tag, an anchor tag, and I'm going to pass this href to it and this download attribute to it, which once clicked is going to download this image. Then I'm going to append it to my document.body. I'm going to call the click function on it. And this is going to download the image. Once we are done with that, we want to revoke the object URL to clear the memory so that if the user is downloading or creating images, it's not going to cause a memory leak. And once we're done, we're going to actually remove this element from our document. Now, something else is that I have also passed in a style of display none. So this anchor tag, it's not actually visible inside of our application. It's just for the purpose of downloading this image. Now, going back to our application, if I now hit this download image button, this is going to download this inside of our image here. You won't be able to see, unfortunately, because of the screen recording, but it has now been downloaded locally in my machine. And that's a wrap for this video, folks. We built a SaaS application that uses generative AI to transform images. In this case, we're using Cloudinary AI features and the next-cloudinary package to not only access our images from our Cloudinary account, but also to apply these new features or these props, these new transformations to our images on the fly. Now we can take this application further. Maybe in future videos, we add authentication and Stripe for subscriptions, so we can give users a free account or a free tier with a limited amount of credits or images that they can transform. And then once they go into a paid plan, they can have more. Right now, there's no authentication, so please don't kill the API. I have a limited resources on Cloudinary, but nonetheless, you can extend this application on your own. Let me know down in the comments if you have applied any other type of transformation to your images. I'd love to know the projects that you're going to build out of this or how you would extend this. If you have any questions, like always, hit me up in the comments and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.